Chapter 2. The Arexaciqui. Soon after the war began, a Lessian girl named Jarissa became a soldier. Around the same time, Princess Silenda got a new lady's maid, a Soledan woman named Jarissa, as Simpa left to get married and get out of Soledo. She missed Simpa, but she liked Jarissa too. Prince Gero, in true 14-year-old boy fashion, was excited by the idea of a war, and began begging his father to let him fight with renewed energy. King Ridero, of course, said no. Being the prince did not change the fact that he was 14 and therefore too young to be a soldier. Unfortunately, with his parents busier than usual, the boy was able to more easily sneak out and get himself into trouble. Arexaciqui found herself making sure he did not run off more often than she did her actual job. Queen Silenda began to seek alliances from the Jarenne and the Natia. The Jarenne, Jarisse, Natia, and Soledo, and the Soledo before the Great Jarissa War had wiped them out, were semi-independent, all Quinians and part of Quinia, and they would get very offended if someone tried to say they were not Quinians, but with their own leaders and able to make their own decisions about certain things, such as whether to join a war. The Rossetti were different. They served only two people, their own tribe and the Arexaciqui. Mostly, people just tried not to provoke them. The Jarisse were formidable fighters and would be very useful to both sides, but they would not break their neutrality unless it concerned them, so if one of their own did something or they were attacked, and they had the strength to uphold it. One did not simply make a Jarissa mad and get out unscathed. The letters were responded to negatively, but the queen did not give up. She decided to ask in person and took her family, besides Prince Gero, Linsco, Linsco, and Thefia, with her. Arexaciqui asked if she had to come, and Princess Silenda said she could manage on her own, and Prince Gero had to be physically held back by Arexaciqui to stop him from running after them. Princess Silenda had a bad feeling about this trip. They left on the second Shadyanyeji of Shivierami, about a month after the war started. A few hours from Soledo, Linsco stopped, frowning and squinting, lifting a hand as if he were blocking sunlight. Thefia looked at him. Elisisho, what's— Oh my goodness! Linsco collapsed, seemingly unconscious. Elisisho! Thefia cried, crouching over him and shaking him. He all right? Linsco said, his accent stronger in his concern. Princess Silenda looked up at her father. What just happened? I do not know, said King Ridero. Too much heat and walking and not enough water, perhaps? A CEO appeared, looking like a very disheveled Quinian farmer with ears like a michke and antlers like a deer, holding a bundle of clothes and a shield, bow, and quiver of arrows. Sorry about that, he said, shoving what he held into the arms of a very confused Thefia. He's all right, don't worry, all right, goodbye! He disappeared in a burst of smoke. The group all looked at each other, bewildered. Now, what Linsco saw was a bright light that seemed almost blinding. When it faded, he was in what looked like a clearing in a forest. 4 men were playing cards on a tree stump. A 5th, dressed in the Elaine-like style of Beretta, was leaning against a tree, studying a sword. Linsco blinked and made a confused Linsco noise. They looked up from their game and sword. They were all blonde and short, wearing various shades of orange in different styles, and most of them had the braid on the left side of their head that marked them as married men. In addition, each of them had the image of an orange hexagon on the back of their hand. For 3 of them, it was the left. For one, wearing very fine, very old-fashioned clothes and the Quinian crown, the right. And for the man with the sword, both hands. Oh, look, another one, said the man with the crown. Did you dodge Arexaciqui with us? His accent sounded Soledan, but strangely more like the low-class accent. He had blue eyes and a sense of power that reminded Linsco of the king and queen. He was about 2 inches taller than Linsco. Should be here for guidance. He always does that, said the man with the sword. He had a strong Beretian accent and a deep voice, despite his small size. His eyes were blue, and though he was only about an inch taller than Linsco, he looked like he was physically the strongest of all of them. Linsco guessed he was a farmer or something similar. He adjusted his hat. Well, Lis, that's my job, the man with the crown interjected. The man with the sword, Lis, sighed and rolled his eyes. All right. The man with the crown stood. I'm King Arexaciqui of Soledo, son of Elinsco. You can just call me Linsco, he said. I still think you should call yourself Ilk, said Nis. The rest of us got nicknames. Unwillingly, muttered the shortest of the men, about half a foot shorter than Linsco. Why shouldn't you? Nis continued. And Ilko's a good one. Elinsco just looked at Nis flatly. Now, he pointed to a man dressed in Alessian style. He had brown eyes and the darkest hair. It reminded Linsco of his siblings, the twins Father Jean-Vin and Sister Achadelia, who had hair that, depending on who you asked and what the lighting was either brown or blonde. His eyes were brown, furthering the resemblance. He was about an inch taller than Linsco. That's Linsco of Mervino, son of Lirio. Now Linsco Ulnoso. We call him Elo, he said. Elo waved. Linsco pointed to the shortest man. He was wearing comparatively modern clothes that were also very fine. He had the lightest hair and amber eyes. He looked a little like Zebocron, but significantly shorter and smaller. That's Duke Linsco Irino Aquiso the Short of Mirvine, son of Duke Belashos the First, he said. He glanced over at the short man. And before we ask, now, aren't telling him all 50 of your names. The short man sighed. The statement was hyperbolic. At most, Quinians only had 9 names. First, middle, confirmation, 4 from his or her parents, and 2 from his or her spouse. The short man had 8. Elinsco looked back at Linsco. We'll call him Arexaciqui. Arexaciqui sighed. I hate that nickname. I understand, all right. I am short even by our low standards, when plain not intended. You need not point it out whenever you talk to me. And really, could a better title not be found for me? Is the most notable thing about me really my height? Is that what we must immortalize in history? Elinsco smiled. Yes. Arexaciqui glared at him, and he laughed. Arexaciqui had a high-class Ozinin accent. His air was certainly aristocratic. He sat straight and proper, as if he believed himself to be the most important person in the room. It reminded Linsco a bit of Zebocron, though that could also be because they were related. He hoped this man was nothing like his other descendant, Duke Gardezel, or, at least, what the rumors and Linsco's godfather said he was like. His complaint about his nickname reminded Linsco of Princess Silenda and his own childhood. He had quickly earned the nickname Arexaciqui, and one of his sisters, even now, occasionally called him Arexaciqui, mostly when she was annoyed at him or specifically trying to provoke him, because he was so small while all his siblings were built like Jarisse. He had always hated it, and eventually he had managed to rid himself of it and became Linsco, though Zebocron had taken to calling him Arexaciqui. Apparently, nicknames are for peasants meant only peasants can have nicknames, not only peasants can use nicknames. Elinsco pointed to a man dressed in a plain Ardennes style, who looked tired. His eyes were green, and he was about Linsco's height. That's Linsco of Girovino, son of someone, without now. We call him Eli. He pointed to the berated man. And that's Linsco Bornero of Bombir, son of Rogero. Linsco almost winced at the name, Linsco Bornero. It, and especially its nickname Borneo, sounded very similar to an insult for Beretans. You know him as Linsco Nis Bombir. We call him Nis, Linsco continued. He looked at Linsco. What about you? What's your name? Linsco straightened. Linsco El Mignon of Sillery, grandson of Colhigno, godson of Ferron. But Linsco, he said. Ferron had been Thefia's father. Linsco blinked in surprise. He had spoken at a normal volume. Yes, we don't know why, but we can all talk normally here. We can also all hear the sword whose name ain't spoken here 'cause she's too loud and annoying, though, said Lis. You're Carino's grandson? Linsco nodded, and Lis smiled fondly. He was a good man, very brave and strong in his own way. He was like a brother to me. My older son's his godson, you know. Linsco smiled. Yes, he was. He did not remember Corino very well, as he had died soon after Linsco's parents, when Linsco had only been 2. But he remembered a little, and his siblings had told him stories. He frowned. Where are we? Lis sighed. Good question. Seo's keeping us somewhere so we can keep doing this. We're dead, but we can't never move on, except at the end of time, we hope. Linsco nodded. That was concerning and confusing. So, who's Ellie? Why haven't I heard of him? I got Timmy and Moria mad. Ellie sounded like this happened a lot and spoke with an Ardaren accent. He stared Linsco in the eyes, his voice becoming deadly serious, almost haunted. Never make Timmy and Moria mad. He relaxed. Los also hates me, but I think that just comes with the job. He had dark green eyes and seemed as if he had somehow seen both too little and too much, as if he had lived 1,000 lifetimes but lost half of his. Elinsco rolled his eyes. Look, I'm sorry about the flowers. How many times do I have to say it? As many as it takes for her to stop hating us, Ellie said. Wait a minute, Linsco said. Yes, you're the next Arexaciqui. Seo does this and makes us explain everything. Arexaciqui was a dialect version of Arexaciqui. Elinsco rolled his eyes at the sound of it. But that ain't the whole reason you're here. We also teach the skills we pass down. Not just ours anymore, said Elinsco. Not since you taught them to those sons of yours, the little farmer and the heretic priest. Linsco thought it was hypocritical for someone who was literally titled The Short to call anyone little. Of course, it was also ironic that he would think that, considering his own diminutive height. He and the princess would probably make these kinds of hypocritical jokes if they were not so sensitive about their heights. Nice and Linsco glared at him, while Ellie narrowed his eyes and Elo sighed. The Alain Rat and Alain Church ain't and weren't heresy. Never! Quinians and Alains can go to each other's churches just fine now, Lys said. And Jarissimo ain't small. That was his older son. And Linsco rolled his eyes. Anyway, I couldn't just let Jarissa teach him everything, Lys continued. Then maybe you should have married someone else. You know, someone who ain't a criminal. Someone like, oh, I don't know, the Queen, said Elinsco. You could have done so much better than some Bavarian girl. Lys groaned. Joe, please, stop this. I didn't love her like that. I wanted to marry Jarissa, and I couldn't marry the Queen even if I wanted to. She was the Queen. I was a farm boy. A Baraden farm boy. Linsco did not like the emphasis that was put on Baraden. A lot of people seemed to forget that Lys had been Baraden and Elaine right. Linsco wondered if his predecessors were the same way. Besides, did y'all see the way Jarissa treated my horse? That's how y'all know y'all have found the right girl, Lys continued. He shook his head. Never mind all this. I've got something to do. You know, I think I should be the one who teaches these skills. They are my invention, after all. Well, mine and Liesa's, said Elinsco. You said that last time, said Ellie. It's his turn now. Elinsco raised an eyebrow. What are we, 5? Oh, how funny! He had been frozen in time for 100 years and aged for 10 of them. When he was 17, he had the experience of a 7-year-old. Would y'all just be quiet? Lys snapped. I am trying to get something done here. Linsco nodded in agreement. I have something to do. I want to get back to doing it. The other Arexaciqui rolled their eyes. All right, fine, said Elinsco. He, Elo, Elinsco, and Ellie returned to their game. Lys sighed. Finally! He turned to Elinsco. Right, now to the skills, or one of them, at least. Elinsco decided to teach him one at a time, so now we all have to. Linsco fidgeted impatiently. Can we get on with it? Yes. Now, Elinsco's companion was a mage, so his skills all have to do with adding magic to your normal swordplay, said Lys. Linsco frowned. Look, Elzisny, swords ain't usually used for magic, but that don't mean they can't be, said Lys. Linsco laughed in surprise. Elzisny? He had not been called that in months. Not since his friendship with Longue had become close enough that they'd started using Zijol and Sigil. Lys blinked, then blushed as the rest of the Arexaciqui laughed. Force of habit, he muttered, glaring at them. Linsco frowned. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. It's just been a while since anyone's called. Lys sighed. It's fine. Nicknaming seemed to be an instinct for Linsco, especially for people younger than him. He seemed to have an inexhaustible list of shortenings for Linsco and Theofonsia, and neither had ever gotten him to just call them Linsco and Thefia. He even called the priest in Bori, well, the Elaine one, by a nickname. Linsco guessed it was a Baradan thing. He pressed his lips together. He had gotten enough of this from the other soldiers and some of the townsfolk in Soledo and Sillery. He did not need more, especially not from people who were meant to be heroes, who had been bound to him by Sio's creation. Could be worse, though, Nice said. Arexaciqui and I finally got them to stop trying to convince us that slavery is all right around when I showed up here. Linsco's eyebrows raised. Oh, goodness! Though he knew Quinia had once practiced slavery, this practice had only been ended when Riska conquered them in 125, the idea of it seemed very wrong to him. Not just morally, but in general. To Quinians, the greatest crimes were not respecting women, not respecting your servants, and not respecting beyond. Nice sighed. Products of their time. I'm sure you learned about how Elinsco's youthful rebellion, as Arexaciqui says, was only marrying one woman. Right. Because Linsco then became king, it became seen as honorable to only marry one woman, though his son had taken 10 wives. By Elo's time, as he said, we figured out that it gives you a bunch of poor, bored young men and they start doing stupid things. Don't get him talking about it, Lynx said. He won't never shut up. Still thinks it's impressive. Right, now there's the little problem of our magic wax frost, said Elinsco, who had now recovered from his laughter. I thought I told you to stay out of this, Lynx said through gritted teeth. What fun! Elinsco huffed. He's right, though. There is a chance that when you use magic, it'll go wrong. We're basically hate outlines, Lynx explained. Linsco nodded. I got that. That's actually why Tammy and Moria hate me, said Ellie. He spoke cheerfully, but he was clearly hiding a lot of pain. It's also all outside all of us, said Linsco. Linsco frowned. Then, are we sure this is a good idea? Lynx nodded. No, but I have to teach you, or they'll have one more thing to annoy me about. Right, enough of this. Now, doing magic with the sword is just like doing it with your hands, a wand, or a staff. Closer to hand, unless you enchant it right. The sword whose name ain't spoken here 'cause she's too loud and annoying is, but, well, she's loud and annoying. Her power's somewhere between a wand and a staff. My goodness, you should have seen what she said about our tyrants, said Ellie. She just couldn't shut up about how stupid she thought my accent was, and that song about Trinitarian heresies. And she implied a few things about us. Elise nodded. Us too. Elo nodded. She called me a pirate because I'm Alessian. I essentially had to spend the entire time explaining why we pay our servants. Well, Elo started. We are not having this conversation again. Elise sighed. At least she actually said y'all were Queen and didn't call y'all heretics. Was she wrong? Said Linsco. Yes! Ellie glared at him, then turned back to Linsco. Anyway, do you know how to cast magic? Linsco shrugged. I've done a little, but my siblings didn't like me doing magic because it went wrong once and I almost burned the house down. Lys sighed. So, do you? Linsco nodded. Alright, so this first one focuses on magic that's directly on your blade, Lys explained. Mikzija and I mostly used fire, but you can use any kind of magic. Linsco guessed Mikzija was Queen Mikya, Riska's exiled princess at the time, and the niece of the Mad King. I mostly used air and water. Air can be quite dangerous, and water can become quite cold before fully freezing, said Arexaciqui. And it is not relevant yet, but a large heavy object is a large heavy object. Yes, so, Linsco, try it. Add magic to your blade and strengthen your attacks, said Lys. Linsco frowned, looking at his sword. He felt that fire magic would be the simplest, so he decided to try that. He thought of the stories he had heard as a child, of Lys and Mikya, with blades and arrows of fire, of Arexaciqui and the cursed mage Liesa, battling the Uriling Vilenta with wind and water and lightning, of Elo and his strange companions Sylvie and Nelfi, battling the evil boat Sidnio and his crew Ulsbirbi, Sylvie's music igniting into fire and bringing the seawater to their aid. At first, he almost laughed at how absurd it sounded. Those were stories about heroes, great men who saved Quinia. He was just a soldier, and so was Linsco, or the closest they had back then. Ella was a privateer, Ellie was from a tiny village in the middle of the woods, and Elise was from a village in the smallest and youngest, at the time, province that most people only think is worth mentioning because he was from there, and even then a lot of people ignore that part. Linsco thought. Arexaciqui was a duke. A strange one, but a duke no less. Let's try this another way, he thought. This time he simply thought of what he needed. Fire being added to his blade. No, coming from it. Flames flickered on the edge, and then the whole thing burst into flames. Lise smiled. Good. Now I think you got something important to do. I'll find you again when it's time. The forest faded, and Quinia reappeared. Linsco's head was in Thefia's lap, and Linsco was sitting next to her. Both looked worried. Thefia sighed with relief. Thank goodness you're all right. Linsco blinked and sat up. What happened? He had returned to mumbling everything. That was a little annoying. He had liked being able to speak at normal volumes. No matter how hard he tried, he had never been able to. You just collapsed. And then Sio showed up and gave me some things and said you were all right. What happened? Thefia said. Linsco opened his mouth to explain, then realized how ridiculous it sounded. Hard to explain. So, what about that stuff Sio gave us? Linsco said. It looks a little like... Princess Silenda nodded. Arcanian Sorenso, the bow and shield of the Arexaciqui. Linsco nodded. It's for me. Linsco's eyes went wide. Linsco the Aresk? His accent had thickened. Linsco nodded again. That's why Sio did this. Oh, dear. Princess Silenda began to pace. Oh, dear, this is not good. Musika, do you know what this means? Queen Silenda nodded. The Dark Lord's curse. It must be referring to the Soledo. I suppose it could. She was still not sure about it, but did not know why. Whatever happens, I am certain of one thing, King Ridero said. Gerokiso could not know of this. Everyone agreed. The boy would probably tell everyone, and never leave Linsco alone again. The group continued to Silna Lake. On the path, they found a Natos they guessed was a soldier of sorts, doing his job. He was fairly small and thin, dark blue with wide green eyes. While they would make most look childish, they made him look observant, as if he were trying to take in as much as possible, see behind the front everyone put up. He stopped when he saw them and bowed. Good morning, your majesties, he said. Even more strangely, he had more of a Lessian accent, rather than Cineran. There were a few Nati settlements in Lessia, but not many, and none as large as Savine or the other Cineran towns. Finding a Lessian Nati was a bit like finding someone left-handed, or a twin, a simile that would be more effective if there were not a left-handed boy in the group who had twins among his siblings. What brings you here? The Natos continued. You must speak with King Rileso and Queen Rila, said Queen Silenda. The king be not here right now. Ye can speak with the queen, said the Natos. Princess Silenda, Thefia, Linsco, and Linsco looked at each other nervously. King Rileso had, rather famously, overheated and nearly died after fleeing the Riskan attack on Savine, so that was what came to mind whenever he left the city, especially in the summer. Very well, said Queen Silenda. Take us to the queen. The knight nodded and led them to Savine, and then to the palace, built of silver and blue stones. Queen Rila II sat on her throne, worrying. This was not unusual for her, but there seemed to be more to worry about than usual. The war with the Soledo, the continued Rosenna attacks, especially in Lessia, her husband's absence, and, of course, the old monastery. Her scales were blue-gray and white, and her eyes were blue. Nati wore robes and a mantle made of fabric that did not get too heavy when wet and dried quickly. Hers were the blue and yellow of Silna, her house. Nati's mantle marked their social class and marital status. Hers was the silver of a married noble. Deep in Silna Lake was a monastery, abandoned during the Great Jarissa War. No one had wanted to risk using it during the Jarissa King's reign, and no one had bothered during the years of anarchy that followed. After he had been defeated and Queen Silenda of 100 years had returned, some had tried to return it to what it once was, but there had been something off about it. It was thought that a demon or something was living within it, but exorcisms did not seem to work on it, and they could not figure out how demons would have gotten the rights to it. They felt that they could not live in it any longer, and so it was abandoned. Some other demons had taken up residence during the time of Linsco, but he and Queen Mikya had managed to get a priest to exorcise it. Now, they were not sure what, but something was happening down there, and they were sure it was nothing good. King Rilezo had taken 2 soldiers to investigate, but they had never returned. Queen Rila was worried, but she worried whenever her husband was gone. This was just proof that they were rational. She was driven her thoughts by the entrance of Lugio, one of her knights, Queen and Princess Silenda, King Ridero, and 3 of their soldiers. Queen Rila blinked, then remembered that she was the one who was meant to greet them. "Good day, your majesties. To what do we owe the pleasure of your company?" She gave her daughter, Princess Seluka, a warning glance. "I swear if you say that is fancy talk for what are you doing here, or anything about," she thought. Princess Seluka gave a rather unladylike snort. "That is the princess. Where is the rest of her?" Queen Rila's teeth clenched and she glared at her daughter. The girl was relatively the same age as Princess Silenda. Her scales were white and light brown, scattered with darker scales, and her eyes were blue. Her robes matched her mother's, but, being unmarried, her mantle was white. Princess Silenda stiffened. "I am not that short!" she almost shrieked. "Must everyone say this?" Princess Seluka smiled. "I am sorry about her," Queen Rila said. "Lukisa, do not insult the princess." Princess Seluka rolled her eyes. Queen Rila sighed, turning back to Queen Silenda. "Now, what is it you wanted?" "An alliance," said Queen Silenda. "I am sure you have heard of what happened with us in the Soledo." Queen Rila stiffened. "If you are asking for help, you will not get it. It is not our fight." "What my mother means is," said Princess Seluka. "Oh no," Queen Rila thought. "Keep your foolish war to yourself. We do not want anything to do with it." "Seluka!" Queen Rila snapped. "It is true," she sighed. "I am sorry about her. She has some trouble with respect. Anyway, we have our own affairs to attend to. We may send you supplies, but no soldiers." "I see," said Queen Silenda. "Thank you, Queen Rila." "You are welcome," said Queen Rila. They left. Lugio was about to follow them out, but she stopped him. "Stay here for a moment, Lugio." He stopped and turned to her. "Yes, my queen?" "Go down to the old monastery. I need you to make sure that Arexaciqui is all right." Princess Seluka sat up straighter. "Oh, can I come too?" Queen Rila shook her head. "No, it is too dangerous. It is no place for you." Princess Seluka pouted. "But it is so boring up here. I want to do something. Why can I not go with him?" "Lukisa, something is happening in the monastery, and I am sure it is not good. Knowing its history, it is probably infested with demons again. I am not putting you in that danger. You are the future of our people." "I can protect myself, and I will not be alone." "I think your mother has a point, milady," said Lugio. "Stay out of this!" she snapped. Queen Rila sighed. "All right, go." Princess Seluka cheered. She leapt down and followed Lugio out of the palace, through the underwater tunnel leading to the lake. As she watched her daughter and knight leave, she had one more thing to worry about, and hoped desperately that she had not done something wrong. In Soledo, a young girl in a purple scarf became a soldier. In Soledo, a young girl in a purple scarf became a soldier, someone who no one thought should be there. In the wilderness of Ozin, a boy a little on the short side led a Natos through the woods, walking with some Rosene. All the Natos could think about were the 2 dead soldiers, and his mother's last words to him all those years ago, shouting for him to run. He wished he could have done more for them. His people, in both the present and the past, and his mother. "Saint Jarissa Valerie, pray for us," he thought. Saint Jarissa had gone to prison for a crime she did not commit, so she was the patroness of prisoners. In the treetops above them, someone followed, silently leaping from branch to branch. The short boy stopped for a moment, thinking he had heard something, both wishing he could see her again and hoping she would not return. He knew what happened to people like her.